love that song still. Like to
Me
this,
too, man.
like every single time. I've heard
I
it
dance.
how many times today now? Because we had practice.
Not
too,
enough.
So
Not enough is the answer. Not enough times.
Yeah.
So wow, what a day, huh?
man,
Action packed. I like so many great talks. Like everyone did such a great job. I'm really impressed. And the fact that we were able to just pack them in with such a tight schedule, and then you have us kind of being goofballs, getting to do some live Q&A and throwing it in the middle there was really nice.
Adam, Brian, you both did a great job. So thank you very much for hosting us.
Oh, stop
thank
it.
you.
We paid him to say that.
That's
I'm appearing on the show next week. So
we paid him and he said it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if the two things correlate, but we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hey, we should introduce our new guests.
Yes. So we have obviously, as you can see, the panel changes. And, so I'm sure if you've watched Containers from the Couch, Pavan. Pavan is a somewhat regular on the show. He's a big time contributor. So we have Pavan Mystery, and then below him, we have Jesse Butler, who also is a regular on the show. Absolutely. And we also have Jeremy Cowan. So if you saw his talk on security best practices in EKS, it was a really, really good talk. Did a deep dive into security best practices, which we're going to talk about in just a moment. And then, of course, Jay Pipes. He told me I'm supposed to pronounce his name Jay Pipes. So
Jai Pipes.
Jai Pipes. And you pronounce it ACK, not ACK.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm just kidding. He's going to really, I'm going to hear it at the end of this.
He's going to come through the internet and burn your house down.
Just such rage.
Take all your pomade.
My pomade can survive anything. So
that's true.
It's nuclear proof. Anyways, so we had some really good talks. Before we go into kind of what we just the three talks that we just had, let's talk a little bit about Kubecon coming up this week, Brent.
Yeah.
As well as we do have a booth there where we have a cool little giveaway. Brent, why don't you talk a little bit about
Actually, I
what's
forgot
coming
about
up.
the giveaway. So Kubecon is awesome this year, especially since it's no longer $1,400 whatever dollars that it has cost in the past, and instead the ticket is $75. And then in addition to that, if you come to the expo hall, come to the AWS booth, you'll see all kinds of great talks. You'll be able to meet up with people working the booth that can help you on a one-on-one basis, answer your questions and stuff like that. They can talk about future, they can talk about current, whatever it is that you want to talk about. They're there to help you out. But we also then have a giveaway that we're going to be running throughout KubeCon. So if you click the button to enter into the contest, then you'll end up with, if you win, you'll end up with $50 service credit. So, combined with the entry for KubeCon, it could knock your entry down to, basically $25. That's pretty amazing. We're going to do that. We're going to give that away to 150 people. And it's not the first 150 that do it. It's going to be randomized at the end of the conference. So, don't think it's too late. Come to the booth, sign up. It's all good.
Yes. And
it's only for those who pronounce the ACK project correctly.
That's part of the test, right?
So actually there's a queue, and Jay literally reads each one with the pronunciation.
That's right.
And he approves or disapproves. So.
No. There's a service controller for that. It's automated.
Created by ACK, by the way.
Yeah, constantly correcting the pronunciation.
Sorry, just kidding. I know, that's terrible. But also, to talk a little bit more about the booth, though. So Brent, you and I got to got to see a little bit of the booth.
Yeah, they were building it. We walked around. We high-fived the construction workers. It was a good time. So it was amazing. But yeah, the booth is going to have. It's going to have. I don't remember what all is it going to have, Adam.
So there's a section on with content. There's going to be an area to talk about just Kubernetes, open source. If you want to talk more or learn more about EKS, there's going to be an area to learn there, as well as chat with the experts. So you're going to get people along the likes of Jeremy Cowan, Jesse, and like just really smart people answering your questions. Not necessarily them, but people like that answering those questions.
Yes.
So
yes.
And then there's a whole bunch of stuff. So those are just some of the things. I can't remember everything, but
right. I'm going to have to like go back just to refresh my memory. So
yeah,
I'll be around. If you happen to bump into me, then awesome. Let's chat. I don't know, Adam, are you going to be there?
yeah. I mean, probably at some point. I don't know. It's EU time. I don't know how that works with Pacific time. So
That's true. Yeah, I'll be there late. So late in the day will be early in the morning for me, but I'm still going to be there. I'll get up early.
I'll be in there for
Nice.
quite a bit of it.
Sweet.
Awesome.
People are definitely so. Bring your custom ACK pronunciations to the booth. The most creative one wins a shout out on a future Containers from the Couch show. Maybe in the unboxing or something.
Keep it
so
clean.
sad I'm not
Keep it clean,
eligible.
folks.
Oh yeah, keep it clean for sure. Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. So let's talk about some of the talks that we just had. Starting with Jeremy's talk on security best practices. So there was a lot of chat going on. This was I got to tell you these last three talks. There was a lot of conversation happening in the chat, but there was one that a question that I thought would be good to throw your way, Jeremy, and specifically around creating guardrails. So how would you create how do you create guardrails within Kubernetes that maybe will prevent users from doing harm to themselves or others?
Yeah, it's a great question. And we're fortunate because Kubernetes actually has a broad set of policies that you can apply to your cluster that can prevent users from doing harm to themselves or to others. Things like pod security policies, which effectively give you a mechanism to configure the security context of a pod. For example, to prevent pods from running as privileged or escalating privileges to run as a particular user. A lot of those things can be configured as pod security policies and automatically be applied when users reference the default service account, which is there by default. Another way that you can implement guardrails is through things like network policies. So I think I may have mentioned this during my talk, but network policies are a way to restrict traffic between pods within a cluster or between pods within the cluster services running outside, although that's probably less common. But nonetheless, network policies are another way that you can restrict the traffic within a cluster. There are also things like quotas and limit ranges that allow you to configure sensible defaults for things like resources like CPU and memory, because a lot of times developers don't know the amount of resources that their applications need. And so limit ranges, for example, allows you to configure sensible defaults or ranges that developers can use when configuring their pods. Another option is to use OPA and Gatekeeper. So OPA, or the Open Policy Agent, is a solution, open source solution that allows you to configure policy, a variety of different policies within the cluster. It's very flexible. It makes use of a domain-specific language known as Rego. And you can use that in conjunction with Gatekeeper, which runs as an admission controller within your cluster. It's actually part of the authentication chain. So before your manifest gets applied or your changes get applied to the cluster, it calls this admission controller, and this admission controller looks at the rules that you've configured to determine whether to accept or reject the request or mutate the request. I believe there's a version of Gatekeeper now that can actually mutate the request.
That's super powerful, and man, that's awesome to be able to just like set policy and then just have everyone fit within it.
Yeah, Yeah, so as an operator of the cluster, now you can like delegate administration of a namespace to a group of developers and not worry as much.
Right. Yeah. I mean, obviously.
Jeremy, why would you use OPA over PSP or vice versa? Like, what are the sweet spots for something like OPA?
Well, so OPA, so you could implement all of the things that you can implement, or virtually all of the things that you can implement with pod security policies. You can also create your own policies, so you're not strictly limited to the things that are within a PSP, but you can create your own policies. For example, you could force the use of labels. You can reject certain pods that are deployed within or to a namespace. There are a whole slew of things that you could do with OPA and Gatekeeper. It's very versatile, whereas PSPs are specifically like configuring the security context for a pod.
Wow. So, Brent, we have this nice hum, and then you muted your microphone, and the hum went away. It was very. We need your hum now. Yeah. Anyways, that's really good information. So, I was going to ask you about OPA, but that was a really good deep dive there. I really think we should have this topic on the Containers from the Couch show. So, Jeremy, I'm calling you out here. I want you. I think we should get you on the show to dive deep into this. And by the way, we have the site below, which a lot of the stuff you talked about in the AWS EKS best practices. So we have that GitHub link below as well.
Oh, yeah, great. Thanks for posting that there. I also want to mention that there is this like a trend towards shifting left. So all of the things that you could do with like OPA and Gatekeeper can now be done earlier in the pipeline with things like conf tests. So conf test is a CLI that you can run against your manifest. So developers can get feedback a lot earlier in the cycle, like before their pod is actually deployed in the cluster. In that they will know whether they've violated a policy.
That's fantastic.
Super handy for developers too.
To add to that, I mean, in the thing I find unique about the OPA project and Gatekeeper and everything that we are seeing there is what we discussed in the IAM session as well, where the users are requesting access to resources through the authorization and authentication frameworks, which we are seeing. But then they are coming across this new idea around admission controllers and how to validate and mutate those requests before they are actually executed. So that's something new that we are seeing being leveraged, and the popularity of OPA in itself as a new authentication framework where people can just write code to change how authentication works and how it can be mutated is kind of unique, and that's where the excitement and the success of this project comes from. So along with what Jeremy said, PSPs and admission controllers together become a really strong mechanism to secure the clusters.
Yeah, I'd love to see us like publish a set of default Rego policies that folks can apply to their cluster. Hopefully,
Let's do it.
Yeah, you can do it this year, next year.
I mean, there might be a Helm chart for like there might be a project with Rego repositories. I mean, there probably is already.
If there isn't, we'll create it.
Yeah.
Nice.
For those of you who missed Prolog, it's like you missed programming in Prolog.
W. Shari says OpenShift has one. So.
Oh, now we definitely have to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Nice. So, go ahead, Adam.
No, go. I was just I wanted to start talking about some of Pavin's stuff on CIS Benchmark. So go ahead, Brent. We can.
That's what I was going to do. By the way, how is my audio now that I've turned down whatever knob this is?
Your audio is perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet. Okay, good.
I'm going to be honest, though, that hum was nice. It kept me at peace. It was like, white noise, but
I can.
Okay.
I can turn the knob
No,
back up, but
that's okay. Now I don't like it anymore.
yeah,
So
now that I'm without it, I'm like, how was I living my life with this on? So
Very dynamic. It's a very
We were living
dynamic
with it.
environment.
yeah, I'm sorry for inflicting that on you guys all day today.
It's
So, Pavan, you talked about CIS benchmark, and I know we've already done a Containers from the Couch episode on that. So, by the way, if you're new to the stream and you're not familiar with Containers from the Couch, definitely check out containersfromthecouch.com, and you can find Pavan's talk on CIS benchmark where he runs through it and demos it. But one of the things that I'm curious about is sort of the day two of that particular project. You know, what's it going to be like when the next version of Kubernetes comes out, or when we move, you know, to a minor release or a patch release, or how might Bottle Rocket, you know, play into all of this? What's that going to be like?
Sure, that's a great question. In terms of the scope, and that's what we are addressing here. The scope right now, as it stands for the way the Kubernetes benchmark project started about 3 years ago. I think that's when the first Kubernetes benchmark was published around May 2017. Is the idea around helping administrators or users to inform themselves around what are the security configurations, good practices around the control plane and the data plane. So now, so having done that, and this is specific to the Linux containers, and still remains the same. So we haven't seen any change or new inputs around Windows containers or the developments we've seen since 2017. But for CIS EKS benchmark, the scope is managed node groups, managed nodes, and self-managed nodes, where we are aware that customers are owning the responsibility to configure the kubelet and the other configurations they are responsible for. So helping them understand the shared responsibility model further and the scope of CIS benchmarks is really important. And that's what we are trying to do. And then we are also iterating, and it's an iterative process, the CIS benchmarks. We have quite a few. If our customers go on to the CIS project, we've been working with CIS quite closely since 2015 or probably earlier. But 2015 is when we published our AWS Foundations benchmark, which helps our customers configure AWS securely. That has been integrated into AWS Security Hub now, so customers by default get suggestions and reviews or control reviews automatically through AWS config on how well their AWS environments are configured. Now, and then there is operating system level benchmarks where we have Amazon Linux 2 with CIS benchmarks. So there's controls around how to secure that operating system, along with many others. I mean, there's Red Hat and quite a few. But then there is STIG version as well. So there are quite a few benchmarks, and the point I'm making is it's iterative. So no benchmark remains as is. There are public contributions every year. There's a version out, and there is iteration. So we will continue with that trend. We will commit our efforts to make sure that the EKS benchmark, the Kubernetes benchmark, is in line with the Kubernetes benchmark, and we are covering our offerings. Now, when it comes to Bottle Rocket or Fargate, the structure is a bit different. Where for Fargate, we don't we take the responsibility of configuring the kubelet, so whatever it's behind the scenes, right? So we don't see customers doing that because they're not responsible for securing Fargate, at least up to the pods, the definitions, task definitions. So that's one, and then Bottle Rocket is something new. I personally haven't looked deeply into it to understand whether it runs kubelet or not, but that's something we can dive into probably with Justin or later on, and that'd be a super interesting one.
Yeah. So DarkSinge89 says, what does phrase day two mean? I've never heard it before. Who wants to take that one? What is a day two versus day one type scenario?
I overuse it, so I could
Go
take a
for
run
it.
at that if you want. So just like way back in the day, we didn't have a term for cloud. We just drew that thing on the whiteboard and it became cloud. So day two is a sort of abstract term that we use for everything after you get your stuff up and running on day one, right? So you provision your infrastructure, you build a cluster, you get some things rolling, and you're ready and you're happy, and you deploy some services and your app is running. That's
Right.
day one. That might take you a week or two, but it's day one.
Right.
And so after it's up and running, you have to worry about things like security. And really, these are things that you want to think about from day zero. But it just happens to be that once you're up and running, now you have to worry about this. And really, day two is like day two plus, right? It's like day one is getting things up, and day two is the rest of your life.
It's the ongoing
and so you're
maintenance.
exactly, and so you're worried about security
Monitoring.
as well as the life cycle of your security. You're worried about monitoring. What does that mean? Well, you've got metrics, you've got logs, you've got tracing, you've got this whole observability blob you have to take care of. You have to update your application. Not only you have a life cycle of your infrastructure, your life cycle of your security practices, your life cycle of compliance, you have a life cycle of your application services. So, you got to fix a bug, you got to put a new service feature out. So, you look at all of these things around how you're going to do that. Are you going to do a canary rollout? Are you going to do blue-green deployments? Are you going to benchmark your work, right? Are you going to say, well, now this thing's up and running, let's make sure it's still running 30 days from now, 60 days from now, et cetera. So exactly. Day one,
So
yay.
true.
Day two, oh no. And
Yeah.
remember, that's
Oh,
the rest of
crap.
your life. That's the rest of your
so
life.
true.
So
Exactly.
yeah, so that's my take on it. It's basically all this, which is like where we start talking about things like app mesh, right? We start talking about service mesh as a way to automate a slew of solutions for your day two problems.
Yeah.
Right? That sounds like marketing speak. That's actually old Unix graybeard speak, right? That's
Yeah.
me saying, you have to solve these problems. Can we just write some code and run a service for you to do it? Right? So those day two problems around observability, security, and lifecycle management. That's
And
where,
raise your hand if you've ever written some code that you then like 30 or 60 or 90 days later, you come back and you look at and you're like, who wrote this? And it's all,
30, 60, or 90 minutes later.
seconds.
yeah.
It
So
depends on
that-
what time of the clock it is, really.
That to
Right.
me is a good example of day two, when like it's time to go back and like do an update or patch or whatever it is that you have to do, and you're having to go and readdress something that took you a while and was hard, and you were glad that it was over with, and you didn't touch it for days or weeks or months, and now you're looking at it and it's like a foreign language, and you're like, what in the world? I don't know how to do. What am I supposed to do here?
Right.
And so being able to alleviate yourself of that responsibility is a huge gain. It's a huge time gain. And let someone else do that. If that's not your business, your primary concern, then let someone else do that and take that hit for you. And you focus on the stuff that your business, that drives your business forward. That's what we're trying to do here.
Well said. Really well said. I mean,
All right.
I think we can all agree that whatever day two is, you can program it in Prolog.
Absolutely.
Yes, there has been a lot of prologue chat.
Honestly,
in
if
the chat.
Scheme isn't involved, I want it to be Prolog. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I just want everyone to know, prior to this, I was talking about pogs in like a previous conversation. So just to, millennial here. So
Yeah, this is. You were talking about pogs, and we were like, "What?" And now we're talking about prologue, and you're probably like, "I've never heard of that. What does that
Yeah.
even mean?" I know
so-
monologue. What's prologue?
so it's just funny perspective here. But so wow. Yeah, that was I'm ready for bed, and it's like it's not even 3:45 yet.
So what else? All right. So we also talked about Fargate. I mean, it seemed like this last section had there was some direct security stuff. But even Fargate brings a sort of element of security to the table because, it moves more into or out of the customer's shared responsibility area and into AWS's. So let's just talk about for a second the security aspect of Fargate. What does it do for the customer, and what does it sort of take off the plate so that they don't have to worry about it?
Yeah, and I think just to really quickly speak to that, Pavan was talking about benchmarking and all these things that when you're managing your own nodes, the data plane, you have to think about patching your operating system. You have to think about cycling out instances for newer versions and ensuring that all the packages installed in your operating system are not only secure but they're up to date. There's just so much to focus on there. With Fargate, you don't think about that anymore. This is that shared responsibility model we talk about, where now you're going one step up in the platform per se, and AWS is taking care of the back end virtual machine. So now I don't have to think about patching that, right? So, and I think someone else was going to talk. So go on.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
What a nice segue. I was agreeing with you, and then I was going to say, on top of that, there's an additional layer of best practice there, right? What you have is not only you're offloading all of the node management, you just don't have to worry about it, but also, you don't have to worry about reducing your attack surface because Fargate will do that for you in your node. You also don't have to worry about, spreading your load or keeping your pods secure. So as we saw in the talk and in the chat, the pod to VM or the pod to instance is a 1-to-1, right? So when you're running a pod, it's actually got its own VT context, its own kernel, its own private compute environment. Or yes, it's definitely possible to run containers on your own hosts, or in Kubernetes and keep them secure. This is just done for you, and it's sort of just elevating that best practice of saying, the safest way to do this is to put these processes in their own space. They get their own VT context, their own kernel, their own memory, everything. Which is great. So now you're reducing attack surface, you're reducing the amount of risk, as far as noisy neighbors, shared tenancy, whatever, and you don't have to worry about it.
That's
the service does it all for you.
So just on that point, to give an example, when we announced the server-side encryption for ephemeral storage within Fargate, PV 1.4. That was the feedback from our customers, as in, this is great because we don't have to configure anything. You are doing the encryption for us, so we meet all the compliance requirements. So that's just a quick example of how Fargate helps you just offload the hard bits to us and do the fancy things.
Do the fancy things. Yeah. That's awesome.
It actually, it simplifies day two operations. We were talking about that before, in that you no longer have to manage the node on which your pod runs. We handle that for you. So, from an operations standpoint, things are still a little easier. You still have to create policies and such, but the actual maintenance of the node is offloaded to AWS.
Yeah. And the fact is, the way we talk about things a lot of times leads people to kind of try and bucket everything into Fargate or everything into EC2. But I think the spirit of what Tex and Raj is pointing out here, Fargate or EC2 worker nodes, best of both worlds, that speaks to what you get at AWS is you get choice. There's just tons of choices, and you can pick whatever the best tool is to accomplish whatever you're trying to accomplish. So if it's EC2 nodes, if you can, tune it to be the absolute best performing, and that's worth your time, then absolutely do that. If you, on the other hand, want, to spend your time doing, other things elsewhere in the stack, running on Fargate is a choice that you can make, and it offloads a ton of responsibility and maintenance for you. So yeah, absolutely. Tex and Raj, thank you for that.
Yeah, and there was just, it was, I saw or, but it really is, it could be and or, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, you can mix everything.
which is great. You may have a node group that requires EC2, machine learning workloads, whatever that is, that requires something on those EC2 instances. But for other workloads, why manage the underlying virtual machines if you don't have to, right? So, and I think Massimo had made a really nice comment that he asked if we're paying Adam or because he's saying I'm having too much fun. And I said earlier, if there's one person who I think loves Fargate more than me, I think it's Massimo. And like his blogs, he has some amazing blogs on the Containers blog about Fargate. And there was one that was shared earlier, Fargate Under the Hood. So just, follow Massimo for all the cool stuff about Fargate. He's always posting some really great content around Fargate on EKS, ECS.
Also, if you ever need advice on what to order at Outback Steakhouse, he's your guy. So definitely hit him up for.
Actually, since he hasn't been able to visit an Outback in a while, we've been kind of avoiding talking about that. But soon.
Too soon.
I send him pictures of awesome blossoms just to try and get him going.
Poor guy.
So I don't know if you guys caught a question from Mr. Proper earlier. Will AWS ACM make my cert available in multiple regions? Did anyone have an answer for that? Maybe Pavan, do you know that?
Not the top of my head. No. I'd have to look into it.
I feel like I remember this being possible if you built it in US East 1. That's a bit of trivia that Mr. Proper, you should go and verify. But my recollection is if you build it in US East 1, it's available in all the regions. But if you build this cert anywhere else, it may not be. And that was a while back, so that may not even be true anymore.
So there we go.
All right.
And I would just say also, if you do have like a technical account manager, a solutions architect, you can always reach out to them. They can reach back into the product team and ask these questions on your behalf as well.
For sure.
So,
yeah. All right.
Okay.
So what's next? KubeCon, right? Let's recap what we should be able to see at KubeCon coming up. We have KubeCon Europe. It's going to officially get underway sometime tonight because it's tomorrow European time, right? I can't understand time zones well enough to do that math. But yes, you should check that out. It's virtual. And then we're going to have a booth. And, oh, sorry, I got distracted. We're going to have a booth. You can come by, talk to any of our experts, talk about anything Kubernetes related. Doesn't have to be EKS, by the way.
Right.
We want to talk to you about everything Kubernetes on AWS. So I've seen some questions throughout the day around the VPC networking model and stuff like that. So definitely come chat us up and find out what implementation details might work best for you. And otherwise, meet us back here, twitch.tv/AWS, tomorrow, noon Pacific, for the next episode of Containers from the Couch. We're going to get back on our regular schedule. And we're going to kind of dive in and unbox some of the stuff that was announced today here. So we're going to unbox Bottle Rocket. We're going to unbox ACK. And then we're going to unbox custom managed node groups. Does that sound right? Did I get that one right?
Brent, you did it.
I don't know if that's I don't know if that's
for managed node groups.
Custom. Yeah, so customizing managed nodes. That's what I like.
Customizing managed nodes.
Customizing managed nodes.
Yes.
I don't know if that's officially an unboxing because those are so fun. But yeah, we're going to walk through that feature and we'll talk about it, show some demos, and maybe we even use Bottle Rocket in some of those.
That would be
that'll be great.
Incredible.
That's a nice tease right there.
Yeah,
I like that. And just so there were some questions about Containers from the Couch. So this is Monday through Thursday. Containers from the Couch, 12 to 1 Pacific time. I see AWS posted that. Thank you.
Nice.
But again, so thank you to all the speakers today. What an amazing job.
Yes.
Really just awesome content. Bob, great keynote, great announcements. And I think that's it for today. unless anyone else wants to say something before we shut this bad boy down.
I did want to make one point. I saw a couple people say, "Oh, this is crazy late in Europe. This is KubeCon Europe." So this is just our day zero event, and we're all in the U.S. and we wanted to make sure that we could engage folks in the U.S. and have it all available for playback. But we're going to be online all week. So if you happen to watch one of these sessions and have a question, just hit us up and somebody will be there. Some of us in the East Coast will definitely be with you late into our evening or into our early morning. And we'll see you live in your time zones.
And also to recognize some of the feedback we received was that the gaps or the breaks between the sessions is something we acknowledge, and we'll be working on that, our teams, on organizing it next time. But thank you for the feedback. We appreciate that.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. We're constantly iterating on this model, and I don't know if you remember the last conference that we held, but we did have sort of a break between sessions, and we took them out this go around, and now we're going to figure out yet another variation to try out. So
meet in the middle. We're going to meet in the middle.
Yeah, we're going to get it right. It's going to be
We should
amazing.
just play that "Here We Go" song for about 5 minutes.
That's it. Little dance break.
No, we need to find
going.
We need to find a "Where'd They Go" song.
Jay,
Where'd they go? Where'd they go?
I see you scratching your head, Jay. I saw you dancing earlier when the music was going. I'm just
First
kidding,
of all, I've only heard it twice, and that's enough for me. So,
Okay.
All right, we'll get some Fleetwood Mac for you. All right.
The new name
that's
is officially
That's fine.
You can't hate on my song. All right. Thanks, everyone, and we hope to see you very soon. Thank you.
Awesome.